The death toll from the northern New South Wales floods has risen to 5. The mammoth cleanup is continuing. Thousands of people still can't go home. Extra help has been sent to communities in the Northern Rivers where food and fuel are still in short supply.
Bumper to bumper.
Right-hand side up.
Drivers wait patiently for their turn at the Bowser.
Coming with me, follow me.
The long queues have become supply beacons.
Driving past the other ones on the way up, they're all empty, so you can really tell which ones have petrol and which ones don't.
Mental, chaotic, we're out of fuel. Nelly, yeah, we're out of food, out of pies, it's just crazy.
There's some relief for shoppers as shelves are restocked, but staple items were quick to go despite being rationed.
Today there is a little bit, yes, just a little bit.
Rubbish is piling up around the regional city where thousands have been forced out of their homes. Tonya Dynan and her family swam to safety on Monday. They are now staying with relatives and it's a little crowded.
We have 4 adults and 4 kids, a dog, 2 cats, a turtle. Tough. Feel like we're intruding.
They don't know when they will be able to go home and they are not alone.
We had an issue before the flood, so now we've had literally hundreds, if not thousands of houses that will be out of commission for some time. We have 2,000 people in 2 evacuation centres in Lismore alone.
Authorities are scrounging for accommodation from cabins to motels.
I don't want to see anyone in an evacuation centre any day longer than they need to. I want people in homes.
The government says it's clear the clean-up ahead will be long and challenging, but what they haven't conceded is that help came too late or not at all for many residents trapped by rising waters.
I've heard tragic stories today, right? These, they're terrible, they're awful, and they should never happen.
Including stories of the elderly, pregnant women and children getting trapped and then being put on hold when they called 000 or the SES for help.
That is completely unacceptable.
There are dozens of people saying this.
I mean, I agree, and that shouldn't happen.
The Premier defended the state's initial response to the emergency.
We couldn't get aircrafts into the skies. We just couldn't do it.
But communities proving on the day that they could. Bruce Mackenzie, ABC News, Lismore.
The Premier, Dominic Perrottet, is in the state's northeast to inspect the impact of the floods. Our state political reporter Ashley Raper is in Lismore for us tonight. Ashley, was the Premier able to assure people there that more help is on the way?
Jeremy, the Premier turned up empty-handed today, insisting this trip is about listening and assessing exactly what is needed. Dominic Perrottet made big promises about getting people into temporary housing as quickly as possible and that there would be more funding coming for recovery and rebuilding. But whether that's enough to reassure people, the Premier was in Ballina today, not Lismore, where the impact of the flooding has been more devastating. And there's a sense here and in surrounding communities like Coraki and Woodburn that there hasn't been enough help from the start. So the Premier could face a lot of frustration from people here, Jeremy, when he visits tomorrow.
Ashley Raper reporting from Lismore. Many smaller communities across the Northern Rivers region have also had significant damage. Landslides have transformed the terrain at Upper Wilsons Creek, and many towns have endured days of isolation, poor telecommunications and a shortage of supplies.
Ken Jordan has lived in Coraki for nearly 50 years. Of all the floods he's seen since then, nothing has come close to this.
And how much damage is done?
Total.
You've lost everything. How are you feeling?
Terrible.
The area has only been accessible by boat and helicopter. Some have been forced to sleep in their cars.
It's a bit rough being the 3 of us in a small car with as much as we could fit in it. And yeah, having a 2-year-old in a footwell in the front seat to play with all those toys is a bit much, but we're doing what we can.
We could see that, there was things happening in Lismore, and then the focus all of a sudden shifted to Ballina, and it's like, hang on a minute, what about little Coraki here and then Woodburn?
At Upper Wilsons Creek, locals have described a dramatically altered landscape as the flood waters carved a path of destruction.
There were boulders going down the creek at night. You could just hear these massive crashes going down the creek.
They're now battling to access the basics.
Fuel and food are definitely the priority at the moment, because with fuel we can keep running generators, and food obviously people need to eat.
For the isolated, making contact with the outside world has been a major challenge.
At one stage we had 36 mobile base stations out, 20 odd without power, but what we weren't getting was feedback from Telstra about what they were doing about it and when it was likely to be restored.
While councils across the North Coast say it's still too early to even consider what lessons could have been learnt from this disaster, they're urging the federal government to look at if privatising Telstra has actually put lives at risk and isolated people for even longer.
There's a lot of anger at the moment because of that lack of communication and the inability to restore services even after floodwaters have receded.
Telstra says it's been working to reconnect services across the region, but many here are running out of patience. Miranda Saunders, ABC News, Coraki.
Floodwaters are slowly starting to recede in parts of Sydney, but the city's northwestern fringe is not out of danger yet. Our reporter Nakari Thorpe is in Windsor. Nakari, we hear there are some fresh warnings.
Yeah, good evening, Jeremy. That's right. Major flooding is continuing in North Richmond this evening, while moderate flood warnings are still here in Windsor. Now, the Bureau of Meteorology is also warning of possible renewed rises over the weekend as both the Hawkesbury and Lower Nepean rivers peaked. But people here today were really just taking stock of the damage as the water level dropped, but they're also preparing for more to come. A sea where it just shouldn't be. As the debris-filled water in Sydney's northwest dropped, destruction was exposed.
It's hard to see, yeah. It's a lot of water,
I feel bad for the other people that have to leave their house.
Rescuers checked this submerged car for anyone trapped inside. Thankfully, only finding someone's belongings. Among the only things dry in Richmond, the pub's beer taps.
That's it. That's all we got.
Local landmarks are still well underwater, along with crucial infrastructure and properties, but not Ross Gerard's.
The water's only gone through a shed down the bottom. All our animals are safe.
After flooding 12 months ago, he felt ready.
We got in and got things cleared out pretty quickly this time because the water did rise a lot quicker than last year.
As the Hawkesbury River swirls and swells and is influenced by big tides, the threat isn't over.
We're just about a kilometre down the road here, and last year we were completely flooded. Went up to roof height, and the way the water's coming in, yeah, I think it'll go under.
In Windsor, it's clear to see how much risk is still here. These paddocks are usually filled with livestock, but now it's an inland sea, and the Premier is warning this flood event isn't over just yet.
We are still concerned about the Hawkesbury Nepean area and flash flooding in other areas, and including particularly the Central Coast and Hunter regions.
Can't take any more water. That's one of the biggest problems we have at the moment. Just a very wet summer.
A wet summer still spilling into autumn. Nakari Thorpe, ABC News, Sydney.